From the crossroads of the Ozarks, it's PID Radio. Welcome. I'm Derek Gilbert.
I am Sharon Gilbert, and yes, we are back. It's been a bit of a vacation for us. We had some good times, drank some eggnog, had some cookies, and now we're a few pounds heavier.
Well, actually.
Yes,
actuarially.
No, that's something else.
Yeah, not so much because we both dealt with a little virus over Christmas that affected our appetites.
Yeah, a little bit, but I bounced back up to where, I had lost, I'd gotten down too skinny, and now I'm back up to the 125 where I belong. Today, by the way, is one day after your birthday. It is also the birthday of a very good friend of ours, Theo Todd.
Oh, yes. Happy birthday, Theo. This is quite an auspicious weekend.
Isn't it, though? Because yesterday was your birthday.
Yeah.
You're a little older than Theo.
Yeah, just a little bit. 60-second trip around the sun.
Yeah. And
Sunday is Dr. Judd Burton's birthday.
Who's a little older than Theo.
Yeah, a little younger than me, but a little older than Theo, so somewhere in between. So yes, it's sort of
all the birthday togethers.
We're calling it the Geek End. Instead of the weekend, it's the Geek End.
I love that. I love that. So mark your calendars for next year, January the 5th through the 7th.
Yes, the annual Geek End. Theo is a very, very intelligent young man. He's reads amazing. Well beyond his grade level. He created for us, out of Legos, a laboratory.
I know. I love it.
And check the show notes. I'll put a picture of the laboratory in the show notes at pidradio.com so you can see exactly what we're talking about. And the figurines in there are from Timmy at Fringe Figurines, who's created Fringe Figures, right. He's created
figurine, that's sort of a diet thing from way back in the day.
And, action figures, figurines.
These are action figures?
Well, yeah, they are.
They're just small.
He's done figures of, Judd, the two of us, Doug Van Dorn, Mike Heiser.
There is a wonderful one of you and Kenny C. and myself at in the booth of a restaurant.
Yeah, where was that? Was that in...
we were in...
Jeffersonville?
Oh, it was. No, it was in Pennsylvania. We had just been to Mike Heiser's memorial. Right. And so at the conclusion of everything, we were saying goodbye to Kenny. We stopped at a great restaurant and had some really good food. And we took a picture. I think Kenny took the picture, but took a picture of us there in the booth. And so it has been Legoized.
Yeah. Timmy at Fringe Figures put that together and immortalized us there. So anyway, we'll include the laboratory, including the Lego Us, thanks to Timmy and Theo Todd for creating the laboratory. Brilliant design.
We need a Grace. Yeah. Yes. We've got a Sam somewhere, and I apologize. Sorry, Fringe. I cannot find my Sam.
Sam Lego?
Yeah, there was a little dachshund and a little bitty white dog that reminded me of Murphy back in the day. Yeah. And the figure of me that came with that had a little pooper scooper. And yes, there were itty bitty little poops.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Appropriate.
Because a Lego dog would,
Yeah. Well, Grace is out in the barn with us right now. She is here on the floor next to me.
Hi, Grace. She didn't even move.
Nope, she is fatigued. Of course, she's been getting me out on patrol several times a day. And that's why I have not regained the weight that I
probably not. You're getting a lot of exercise, which is good.
Yes. Each walk, I plotted it out in Google Maps. Each walk is about half a mile. So
that's good. You're doing 1.5 miles a day.
And she moves at a good clip.
I think she prefers walking with you because I slow her down a lot.
I've got longer
My legs are shorter. Yep, I do not walk as quickly.
But she is bound and determined. She is going to break the great Vol conspiracy.
Lord Voldemort.
Yeah, we've got Volhalla out there in our property with their little holes everywhere, and she comes back in with
Volhola.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Volhola comes in with mud in her nose from digging down in there. She's sure she's going to catch one of them. It's like,
she does love doing that.
They are way underground. They hear you coming. They're not going to.
Well, I'm glad you do that with her because, first of all, it's a good way for the two of you to bond, and she really has bonded well with you. But the other thing is that she is a working dog. Her breed, she's a flat-coated retriever, and they're working dogs. She needs a job.
Yeah, and clearly she takes it very seriously because she starts getting very anxious when it gets about that time on the clock. And
she can tell.
But it was really interesting. Last night, I interviewed Ali Siadatan for tomorrow night's View from the Bunker. He is Iranian by birth, was raised Muslim, but rejected that and then was led to the Lord Jesus Christ through his research into the UFO phenomenon.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. And he's produced a documentary that you can watch at his website, thinkagainproductions.com. It's right there on the front page. UFOs, Angels, and Demons, I think, is the title. Forgive me, Ali, if I've messed up the title.
We'll correct it if he has.
Yeah, it's there, and he interviewed Chuck Missler and David Jacobs and others. So anyway, came out here last night to interview Ali about the situation in Israel and Iran's role in all of this. And apparently, 2 minutes after I got out here, you texted me. Where are you?
I don't think it was 2 minutes, but it was pretty quick.
Yeah, texted back in the barn. Apparently, Grace was not happy. So she came out here, and she was here in the barn with me while we talked with Ali for like an hour and 45 minutes, and very, very well behaved.
Let me just explain why I didn't know where Derek was. I was aware that he had a 5 o'clock interview.
Mm-hmm.
It was a little after 4, and he hadn't told me he was leaving for the barn. So all I knew is that Grace was very upset, which I thought, Derek must not be in the house. So I was in another room reading.
Mm-hmm.
So I texted him, and sure enough, he was not in the house.
Yeah.
Grace was correct. She was telling on you.
Yeah. Well, she came out here and she was very well behaved. Only at one point where she started barking because the police pulled somebody over on the highway out in front of the house, and she was very upset about that. But other than that,
this is our yard. This is our part of the road.
Yeah, go away now. So anyway,
we've had an interesting last few weeks. Getting Grace in November, and the Lord's been so good with this addition to our family. And if you follow Grace on her Facebook page, or you follow my page or Derek's, you'll see a lot of Grace pictures there lately because, well, we're frankly fascinated by her.
Mm-hmm.
She's cute.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of things going on in the world. Today is January 6th, which of course resonates with the whole left with, but it's also, it's Epiphany.
Mm-hmm.
Which I wrote about, as did you. So today is the day that allegedly the wise men showed up.
Yeah, it is still celebrated in the Armenian church, by the way, as Christmas. Today is Christmas. And the reason for that, just to detour into this for just a moment, was that
it's a good idea.
9 months after where they determined the Annunciation was, which was the conception of Jesus, it was believed because of a belief, an old tradition among Jews, that famous prophets were conceived on the same day as their death.
Well, the same day in the year, not the exact same day.
Not the same day, but the same day in the year, the same calendar day. And the early church, the Roman church, or rather I should say Latin Christians, because the Roman church really didn't become the Roman Catholic Church until after the 7th and 8th centuries, when Islam destroyed the other centers of Christianity. Antioch, gone. Alexandria, gone. Jerusalem, gone. That's when Rome really came to the fore. And even then, you still had the disputes between Rome and Constantinople. Anyway, the Eastern Church figured the death date of Jesus must have taken place in the same calendar month as the spring equinox, and so they figured it was April 6th. You add 9 months to that, you get January 6th. The Latin Christians in North Africa, for some reason, and it was just the wrong date, but they settled on March 25th, so you add 9 months to that, you get December 25th. That's the reason, but they kept January 6th as Epiphany, which was the day traditionally when the 3 wise men arrived at the manger and recognized the divinity of Jesus.
By the way, this is why you have 12 days of Christmas.
Yeah.
It's called Christmastide, that whole season. It's 12 days, beginning with Christmas and then going all the way to Epiphany. But you were born one day shy of Epiphany. And of course, today Theo was born. So
that's right.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
No wonder he's so wise.
Uh-huh. So, yeah, it was, so as you wrote in Tom Horn's book, was it The Messenger, or was it?
I can't remember if that one or it was. I think it was The Messenger.
Right?
Yes.
Which was his follow-up to the Wormwood prophecy. the messenger, you pointed out the fact that event that took place 3 years ago today, we're being careful so we don't get ourselves caught by an algorithm, that was supposed to be the focus of a speech by President Biden today at Valley Forge. They had to move it because of a winter storm.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, that it coincided with Epiphany or Theophany, as it's sometimes called in the Eastern Church.
The day that God becomes visible.
Right. And so you had the Temple of Democracy, as it was called by multiple political leaders and political commentators in the wake of the event. America's Temple of Democracy was desecrated on Theophany, on Epiphany, and led by a guy wearing a buffalo hat.
That's what I found the most interesting about it.
And it was a symbol. And the fellow whose name, the young man, seems to be a well-intentioned young man, perhaps seeking, as many of us are. Name is Jacob Chansley. His stage name, though, as an actor is Jacob Angeli. Angel E. And that was an odd sound.
Yeah.
Yeah, the barn is not soundproofed against noise from the outside. It's generally quiet enough here in the country.
It just means angels, angelic.
Yeah. So he led this group, and the bison or the buffalo in the ancient world was a symbol of divinity. In fact, the Titans, that name in the old Greek gods who were condemned to Tartarus, the equivalent of the Watchers, the sons of God from Genesis chapter 6, the same entities, just by different names. That actually comes from the name of an ancient Amorite tribe, the Tadanu. In turn, that name comes from an Akkadian word meaning aurochs or bull or bison. So, and
horns.
Yeah. And Kronos, his name derives from the Semitic word for horns.
Right.
Which probably has something to do with why devils in art are often depicted as horned entities.
Probably.
So anyway, so you got this guy wearing a horned hat representing an ancient pagan deity, an ancient titan, if you will, walking through our so-called Temple of Democracy on the date in the Christian calendar that celebrates the recognition of the divinity of Jesus Christ.
Boy, you couldn't plan it any better, could you?
You couldn't.
Well, you can't. Speaking of planets and planning, see, planet any better?
Yes.
I am currently reading Temple at the Center of Time by David Flynn.
I need to read that.
Well, you need to read it more than once. If you are out there and you're listening and you've read it, you know exactly why I said that. It's deep. It's really, really deep. I've read it. This will be my third time through, and I get something new out of it every time. There are a lot of, especially now that I have a better understanding of Nabu and, all of that writing and reading for the Red Wing Saga. I'll tell you, it's like my glasses. You know, when you go to the optometrist and he says, "How's this?"
Yeah.
And he does a click, changes one. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like I'm getting more of that. How is this? And each time it gets a little clearer. So I don't know that I'll ever have 20/20 spiritual vision, probably not in this body, but one day I'm going to know better.
Yeah.
So in the meantime, we just have to do the best we can. And one of those is trying to figure out what this whole Epiphany thing is about.
Yeah.
But I do know that there's a lot of other stuff going on in the world, including who had this on their bingo card.
7-foot alien?
10-foot.
It's 10 foot now.
I saw it. First story I saw was within an hour or so of it hitting the internet. 10-foot tall alien in Miami shopping mall.
Yeah. There was a big hoopla on New Year's Day at a mall in Miami. Police arrived in force, and there is a video that's been distributed through X, formerly Twitter, and TikTok showing what appears to be a giant, slender figure walking past police cruisers.
Now, I'm raising my hand, Mr. Gilbert, because I think that we're seeing two different responses conflating into one, because one was this massive police response, but what I've read is that response was actually responding to what sounded like shots fired. It was some young youths who were setting off firecrackers inside the mall, and it was assumed that there was an active shooting going on.
Whereas, and you would be concerned about that.
You would.
And that's the kind of thing that would get dozens upon dozens of police officers responding. I saw one response to an overhead shot, a drone shot or helicopter shot, whatever.
May have been the person shooting out an apartment window, because I saw that one.
Okay, that could be too. And somebody, not a corporate media reporter, but an investigative journalist with a good track record. And I can't remember his name off the top of my head. It might have been Jack Posobiec from, I forget which network he works for now, one of the smaller networks. Anyway, I follow him on X, and he often breaks stories, and he's got a pretty good record. Anyway, his comment was, will anybody explain why more police cars than I've ever seen in my life have responded to this? It may not have been Posobiec, but somebody like that anyway. He didn't speculate as to what was going on. He was not propagating the story that there was this giant figure that appears to have been skulking as the police were there for something else. Yeah, police responded to something. Clearly, they thought it was important enough to send dozens of cruisers.
Well, when I searched for the story, I did not put in alien. I did not put in creature or anything like that. I simply put in police respond Miami.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was all I put in there. And I got the story about the boys.
Mm-hmm.
And it had happened one day before the so-called alien. So again, I think that these two stories have been conflated somehow.
Yeah.
But again, who had that on their bingo card that we were going to see that story come out just about this time of the year, but also at the same time that we've got the Epstein list coming out? Yeah.
Very interesting. By the way, our take on the alien thing, the 7-foot, 10-foot alien, whatever.
Meh.
Yeah. TikTok clickbait.
Oh, exactly.
That's it. TikTok clickbait.
ClickTok.
Yes. So the Epstein list, when something like this, I see.
She's just relaxing.
Taking the bed. When Epstein's list came out, our reaction typically is, okay, what else is going on that they want to distract us from?
Yes, exactly. In fact, I posted that to X, because when something like that does come out, something that we have known for weeks, the drumbeat's been going on, we're going to get it. It's what's going to happen, whose name's going to be on the list.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing on that list that wasn't already known.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we're seeing story after story of that list, even though we already knew who was on that list because of previous depositions. So why is this the big story now? What is going on in the world that we are don't look over here. Nothing going on here.
Well, there's a possible couple of possible responses to this. Donald Trump released a report this past week that's roughly coincided with the release of the Epstein list, and it's not really a list. It's just
it's just that deposition or two,
right? And the report appears to show what many of us have already concluded, that there are, speaking carefully now, statistical anomalies.
Oh, yes.
Related to what happened in 2020.
Yes.
And that's just being honest. I mean, it's, the
you can link to the report if you want to, I think, but you could look it up yourself. Just what would they look for?
Right.
Trump report?
Yeah. Basically Trump election report. And you'll find hints. And of course, the corporate media, the top hit is Washington Post, debunked election report, et cetera. Purported evidence of voter fraud. It's...
Right.
The corporate media is basically dismissing it, but I think that the tactic was to throw something else out there that is a lot more spectacular.
Oh, I agree.
If you got two stories that are competing for the public's attention, one is voter fraud and the other is sex. Which one's going to get the attention?
Always the other.
Yeah.
Speaking of things like that, there was a report that just came out about the number of people coming into the United States over the last...
Oh, yeah. That's the other thing, too, is that the border. And, I did want to talk about that today, because that is the other thing that probably is they want to distract from.
Yeah,
don't look here. The number of encounters at the southern border in the month of December was reported at 302,000. Now, there are a couple of different claims out there.
The month of 1 month?
1 month, yeah. That's like the equivalent of the size of the city proper of St. Louis, or the city of Tulsa, or the city of Orlando, okay? In 1 month, those are just the known encounters, people who were processed by Customs and Border Protection. That does not include the gotaways. Okay, we saw these guys, they ran away, we didn't catch them. And the ones that Border Patrol didn't even encounter. the ones who snuck through and got into the country undetected.
Right.
So at least 300,000 in December, which is reportedly a new record, although there's some indications that we may have hit 300,000 in a couple of previous months, like August of 22 and December of 22. But still, it's a lot.
In the meantime, that's over a year's worth in the UK.
Yes.
And the UK's got, mind you, their population is a whole lot less than ours. But still, they have a lot of individuals coming in, and they're being aided by a charity called the RNLI.
Right.
That charity's donations has now gone way down, by the way.
But there are a lot of charity groups here in the United States that are aiding and abetting. In fact, that was a story I talked about on 5 and 10 for Skywatch TV this week, that an investigative journalism group called Muckraker, it's relatively new, muckraker.com, went into Central Mexico and Central America and visited the offices of charities that are assisting migrants moving northward, and found that they are literally handing out maps. Here is where you catch the train that will take you to the border. Here are the stops along the way. Here are the hostels where you can stay safely.
Yes, well, Muckraker isn't the first to break that story. It was actually Michelle Malkin.
Yeah.
Some, I don't know, maybe 9 years ago, that wrote a book about the sort of the stopover points along the way from Central America to here.
Call it the migration industrial complex.
And well, yes, exactly. And a lot of so-called charities, NGOs, were behind it, including, some major Christian organizations.
Yeah. Well, Muckraker's story, which was published just a couple of weeks ago, detailed several in particular. The Red Cross was one.
Yeah, she mentioned that.
They will never get another unit of my blood. The United Nations.
And that's sad that we think that way, because
they have done good work in the past.
They have,
right.
And there are places that need it. So if you want to donate blood, ask your local hospital or your doctor, right. Where's a good place to donate locally? They'll usually say the Red Cross, but the fact is the blood is needed.
We used to, my fraternity when I was in college, and I only joined the fraternity because it was a nicer place to live than the campus dorms. But anyway, we used to sponsor a blood drive once a quarter, and I gave more than a gallon during the course of my college career, and it was partnered with the local Red Cross.
It was just to get orange juice and cookies.
When you're a poor college student, anything you can do to get some free food.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But the Red Cross is one. There's a United Nations Immigration or Migrant Assistance Office or something, a division of the United Nations that's in there. Doctors Without Borders is another. There was another one called V4F or something like that. It's basically a group that helps immigrants moving from Venezuela northward. But the bottom line is there are a lot of non-government organizations, NGOs, that are getting donations from other wealthy charitable organizations, foundations and trusts that are sponsoring these groups. And they are literally telling people, here is how you get to the border. There's one.
Here are the places where you can stop, where you can get a place to stay overnight.
Right,
you can get some water. You can get a free phone.
There's one that the name in Spanish translates to Friends of the Train, which is the train that is called the Train of Death, or it's also called La Bestia, the Beast.
Yeah, what?
Ride the Beast northward. And the Red Cross has some very helpful tips, like do not ride the train if you are under the influence of alcohol or medication that make you drowsy. In other words, it's too easy to fall off because they don't ride inside the cars; they ride on top.
Right.
And if you're impaired, you might fall off the train. So, helpful advice. Thank you, Red Cross. But then they also show them, here are the crossing points. And the corporate media doesn't report on these maps that are being handed out, because most of the people who use the maps, once they get close to the border, they just throw them away. And
they're not going to report it because the corporate media is by and large owned by leftist individuals who are donating to these NGOs.
Yeah. The other thing that was really surprising was finding out that the number of people crossing into the country illegally the last couple of months has exceeded the number of babies being born in the United States to American citizens.
Yeah, that's the big shock for me. I was well aware that our fertility rate is way down amongst certain groups. However, we've got not only poor fertility amongst, frankly, white, more affluent individuals, and it doesn't have to be just white, but there are an awful lot of young people who are waiting to have children, and then they discover when they're in their late 30s that, oh, hey, I can't have kids now.
Right.
I've just been told that I'm unable to have a child. Mm-hmm. Well, how about adopting? Oh, wait, there are fewer babies available because, frankly, they've been sent to heaven.
Yeah. For the 5th year in a row, this report just came out, the 5th year in a row, the number one cause of death worldwide
is babies going to heaven before they're born.
Uh-huh.
We'll just put it that way.
Right. 5 years consecutive now.
Yeah.
Of course, the corporate media doesn't report on that because that's not considered a cause of death. Because, they were just a clump of cells, not really alive.
Yeah.
No, not so much. So that is, I just wonder about the actual motives for this sort of unrestricted migration. Because Europe is dealing with it. UK is dealing with it. We're dealing with it here in North America. Is it simply economic? I mean, when you're in an economy that is based on consumption, if your population is shrinking, you cannot grow the economy. And we are a consumer-based economy. We don't produce stuff anymore. We just consume stuff, and our banks are not really involved in investing in new businesses to make things that can, generate, profit. They basically are just playing,
they invest in each other.
Roulette. They're playing roulette.
Yeah.
They're betting quatloos on stuff.
Yeah.
And they depend on us buying things and spending money for the economy. But if the population is shrinking, you cannot grow the economy.
Now let's move away from things that we learned last year. Let's start talking about, since this is the first PID radio of 2024, what do you see coming?
Well,
put on your little glasses.
Obviously, the election is going to be a big deal. President Biden just dropped his first campaign ad, and it augurs for a really, really nasty campaign. It basically categorizes anybody who voted Republican in the last presidential election as a threat to national security. I mean, the whole ad was protests, January 6th.
Yeah, but that doesn't surprise me.
It is.
Nor should it surprise any of our listeners, because that's been weaponized over the last couple of years.
It really has been. But for that to be, okay, here's the tone. We're setting the tone for 2024. Frankly, I'm a little surprised that Biden is still by all accounts, he's going to run.
I'm surprised he's awake.
Yeah. I mean, when you watch that ad, and I'm not going to link to it, but you can find it. It's out there on social media. The White House will be more than happy for you to find it on YouTube, the White House YouTube channel. The narration, the voiceover that President Biden did, I mean, knowing a little bit now, as we do, about audio and video production, realizing that something like that is not done in one take, okay?
Or it's an AI.
It would have been better if it had been an AI. See, that's my point, is that President Biden slurs his way through the copy as though he's drunk, which he's not. Let's face it, he's just getting older. 82 years old.
I find the same thing. I'm not 82. I'm going to be 72 this year, but I notice that there are some days where it's just a little, it's like your tongue feels thick.
Yes.
Yeah, you just get older and dry mouth, things like that.
Going through the same thing. The muscles in your face just don't work as well as they used to for whatever reason.
You need to talk more.
That's it, more practice. So pronunciation, reading, just, elocution becomes a little more difficult. President Biden is just at an age where he should have been allowed to retire back in 2017.
Yeah.
As soon as he got out of office as vice president, he should have retired.
Yeah.
So you got this ad that was clearly had to be the result of multiple takes. This is the best of what was available, edited together by the producers of the video. And again, it is just flat out declaring anyone who didn't vote for him last time around as a threat to national security. And that really is, I think, civil unrest. And as we get closer to the election.
Okay, I've got my hand up because I'm trying to stop you there. I think that many people are going to answer it. This is an election year. It's blah, 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 blah. No. Economically, in the world, there are other things going on. We Americans, we tend to look at this election
right.
and we think this is the only thing going on in the world.
Right.
And many who listen to us may be fixated on that. Let's look away.
Yeah. I was gonna say, having said all of that, now let's add the but.
Yes.
Yeah.
However,
yeah, because everything before the but is
yes.
Yeah.
Mm.
That is like the Miami giant alien Nephilim, a distraction to what is really going on around the world.
It was a giant Joe Biden down there.
It was one of those inflatable things outside of a car dealership.
Oh gosh, I think that could have run our country a whole lot better, actually.
Yeah. After what happened 4 years ago, I think we just need to remember as Christians that regardless of what happens in October or November this coming year.
It was 3 years ago. You mean as far as the election or
4 years ago? Yeah. Well, just a little over 3 years ago. Okay. Yeah. 2020, fall of 2020. As Carl Gallup said, God didn't wake up the next morning, slap himself in the forehead and say, boy, I didn't see that coming.
No.
Whatever happens will happen. Do
your job.
Yes.
Do the best you can with the day you have and the rights that you are given.
And remember that at the end of the day, we are still citizens first and foremost of a kingdom, and we are ambassadors for our king. So
Amen.
that is our number one job. Now, civil unrest is worth keeping an eye on because it may affect your safety and security, the security of your family, something you need to pay attention to. Supply chain. We need to look at supply chain because...
A supply chain really quickly, just even here locally, you can't find eggs.
Yeah, which is
the grocery stores. I know avian flu is affecting a lot of farms, but I think there are other reasons why the supply chain is very close to being broken.
We saw it with COVID for sure, but we're also seeing the
Red Sea problem.
The Red Sea problem. Now that is more of an immediate impact on Europe than it does on the United States, but about 10 to 12% of the world's petroleum products sail through the Red Sea. I heard an estimate this morning that's like $3 billion a day worth of, is it $3 billion or $9 billion? Anyway, billion.
Wouldn't be surprised if it's 9. It's a lot.
Yeah, billions of dollars a day worth of goods sail through the Red Sea. Normally, something like 21,000 ships a year, cargo vessels, transit the Red Sea because that's how you get from Asia and India to the Suez Canal, which is a much faster route for getting to Europe and to the east coast of North America than going around the Cape of Good Hope, which is the southern tip of Africa. That adds anywhere from 14 to 21 days to the voyage, and obviously adds a lot of cost and risk. Not least of which because it means now they've got to sail past Somalia, and you've got the Somali pirates that are starting to board vessels.
Well, that's been a problem historically off and on anyway, and now we've got Yemen involved, and boy, howdy.
Yeah, I think we can say that whether the Pentagon admits it or not, Operation Prosperity elocution. Prosperity Guardian has failed because the major shipping companies like Maersk are not letting their ships sail through the Red Sea. Yemen has shown that a small, you see them usually described as ragtag force with a few relatively cheap missiles can actually shut down about 10% of the global
or just
trade.
A few boats.
Yeah,
they tried to board one of the shipping Maersk vessels.
Right, and this was a bit of an escalation last week, where U.S. helicopters from the USS Eisenhower and another one of our warships, the name escapes me. No, Ford is sailing from the Mediterranean back to Norfolk, but. No, the Eisenhower and
another one.
Yeah, another ship. Anyway, basically sank 3 of their boats and killed 10 Yemeni sailors. So the Yemenis are saying that we will pay the price. Iran is calling it an escalation, and Maersk is saying we're not going to take the risk of sending our ships through the Red Sea anymore. Now, what the corporate media is not really reporting is that that Russian ships and Chinese ships, they're leaving them alone. So it's ships connected to Israel, but also ships that are just headed for Europe because they're backing Israel.
Well, they went after a Singapore ship.
Yeah, but that's not China.
It was a Maersk ship. Well, I realize that China says it is.
Well,
I know Singapore and China. Yeah, it's like who? Well, we probably need to take a break, but when we come back, I want to ask you about Iran.
Good question. Yes, Iran and what is happening with the recent strike in Lebanon against Hezbollah. Yeah, that's ahead on PID Radio.
Sharon and I really appreciate your support, and that's why every single month we want to make a special offer available to you at the Gilbert House store. And now that we're into the holidays, we're offering extra specials.
We really are. You know, last year we had some holiday specials that people just really enjoyed getting. Lots and lots of you went and ordered there, and we thank you for that. We're doing the same thing this year. Lots of great deals, including Red Wing Saga specials, Derek's book specials, and blowout prices on all of our DVDs.
Yes, but if you prefer streaming video, so you get instant access in full HD.
And no shipping.
And no shipping, right. We've got special discounts available now at our online streaming site, gilberthouse.org/video. That includes even our full-length travel-logumentaries, our Wars of the Gods Volume 1 and Volume 2, now at a special discounted price through the end of January.
That is such a deal. And by the way, those of you who have loved Vicki Joy Anderson's book, They Only Come Out at Night, that book is also on special December and January.
We want to make this information available to you. We understand that around the holidays, finances get a little tight, so we're offering special pricing on just about everything in our online store. We're all in the middle of a battlefield.
We are.
And we all need good information. Please take advantage of our special offers, gilberthouse.org/video and gilberthouse.org/store. And thank you for your prayers and support.
Amen.
Welcome back to PID Radio. I'm Derek Gilbert.
I am Sharon Gilbert, and we are so glad that you've chosen to join us once again here in the barn. We want to thank everybody who has made this barn project possible.
Oh, yes.
Because, I mean, your prayers, your encouragement, and your financial aid have really, they just totally changed this barn. I marvel every time I walk in it.
Yeah, it is. And our thanks to our good friends, David and Barbara James, Christ Powered Construction, Lynn Shepard, who helped them out with hanging the paneling on the walls and helped us put together all of the flat pack furniture that made the sets.
Huge
and
help.
The desks and everything out here. So we've got a dedicated space to create content, and that has also helped turn our home back into a home. We really had converted about half of our house into office space.
In fact, I posted a really quick video to Facebook yesterday just saying that very thing. Thank you for giving me a writing room back, for giving us our bedrooms back. We've got 2 guest bedrooms again.
Yeah.
How nice. Our third guest bedroom is actually still the shipping office. I don't know if I'm going to bring that out here or not. It all depends on how much space is left over once we're done.
It is kind of convenient to have it there in the house. And,
it is.
Yeah.
It is. Because you never know. Chairman Mouse might decide to, But Chairman Mouse,
and
it's
Lord
just sort
Voldemort.
of Lord Voldemort.
Yeah.
When you live in the country, even in the city, you never know. Mice get in houses.
Yeah.
So you never know. But we try to keep things packed up so that they can't get into anything. Now we've got Grace, and she's on the job.
Yeah. Except for right now, she's totally asleep.
She's totally asleep. Yeah. We also want to thank everybody who takes the time to listen to the podcasts, to watch Unraveling Revelation, to watch 5 and 10, which is still available from Skywatch TV. If you've wondered where 5 and 10 went, it has its own YouTube channel.
Yeah, at 5 in 10.
Yeah.
Spell it out, FIVEINTEN. And that 5 days a week, coming from the barn.
Coming from the barn.
We are able to work from home, and that is truly a blessing.
You're always on it. We're going to talk about Iran in a minute, but if you're wondering about our Israel trip, it has been postponed until November
3rd through 12th. And there will be an optional 3-day extension to Jordan following that. So if you go with us to Jordan, as we recommend, it'll be like 3rd through the 14th.
Yeah,
really.
So if you decide you want to go, and we're praying that everything's over very quickly now in that region, and we can plan on going without a problem, without anywhere of safety, then you might want to vote early.
Yeah, commit and join us, and we opportunity to travel to Holy Land with Timothy Albarino.
Yeah. Go to gilbertsinisrael.com. That's gilbertsinisrael.com. So Iran.
Yeah, This is something I talked with Ali Siadatan about. In fact, there are a couple of interviews with him that we aired on Unraveling Revelation back in November. having been raised there and still having relatives there, he's got unique insight. He believes that the mullahs are seeing this perhaps as their last best chance of perhaps prompting the Mahdi to return.
Oh, that makes them more dangerous.
It does. Now, Shia Islam, and I'm going to be talking with Dr. Timothy Furnish here in another week or so. He has a PhD in Islamic eschatology, which is kind of a narrow field, but really important to understanding what's going on right now as you try to understand, well, why are the Muslims doing this thing? What's the difference between Sunnis and Shias? Understanding Islamic eschatology is really kind of an important thing. So Shias don't believe they can change the timing of the Mahdi's return. Now, they think the Mahdi is equivalent to the 12th Imam, and there are divisions within Shia Islam. Some of them are fivers, some are seveners. The 12ers are the ones who really
Ahmadinejad was a 12er, wasn't he?
Right, and that's the belief system of most of the Ayatollahs in Iran. The 12th Imam went into occultation some, 1,200 years ago.
Hiding in a well or something.
Yeah, sort of like King Arthur. He'll come back when they need him most.
The once in future
Mahdi,
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
The difference with Sunnis is that the Sunnis believe that any rightly guided one, which is what Mahdi means, who can amass enough guns and men can be the Mahdi.
Guns?
So there have been a number, guns or swords, whatever the weapon of choice is. There have been a number of Mahdist movements over the centuries, and Tim Furnish was writing as early as 2005 that we needed to be aware of the danger of, maybe it wasn't quite that early, but before the emergence of ISIS and the ISIS caliphate in 2014, he was warning that the real threat from violent Islam was from Sunni movements who believed that they could raise up a Mahdi. So it's kind of the difference between Christians and Jews. We are looking for the return of the Messiah, whereas Jews are looking for the Messiah to arrive, who will be a geopolitical or military commander who will lead Israel.
And maybe one of two.
One of two, yeah. I mean, Jewish eschatology has got its own idiosyncrasies. But the main difference is that we believe Messiah returns and he'll come on his own timetable. We can't do anything to affect it. Whereas Jews, a geopolitical savior would be welcomed as the Moshiach. And Sunni Islam, their Mahdi might be, al-Baghdadi, who is now, clearly not the one since he's dead. But they've had a number of guys who claim to be the Mahdi over the centuries and led violent revolutions against, various political leaders.
What I find interesting about your discussions with Ali Siadatan is that Iran is not a monolith. We in the West, it's reported as if every Iranian believes this way.
Right. And that's a point that Ali made, and in the discussion tomorrow night, he digs deeper into that. There is a growing body of young people in Iran. They basically lost a generation to the war with Saddam Hussein back in the 80s. And since then, a lot of young people, the largest demographic group in Iran is people under the age of 30. And they're looking at these guys in their 80s and 90s who are running the country and like, you mean we are isolated from the rest of the world, like us in North Korea, because our leaders are hate the West? And Ali, talking to his relatives, like, yeah, pretty much. And there are a growing number of them who think this is really stupid. But what's really interesting is that there's a movement that is emerging now on social media of young Iranians who are saying we need to reject Islam because we are not Arab and Islam is an Arabic religion. All of the scholars and of revered leaders are Arabs. The language of the Quran is Arabic, and the God that they serve is Arabic. We are Persian, and it's so almost like a Persian nationalist movement, but they also want to revert to the old religion, Zoroastrianism, Ahura Mazda.
What's interesting about that is not all Iranians are Persian. Some who live in Iran have come from other countries like India, so that they identify as Iranian, but they are not Persian.
Yeah. And the big difference is that they are not Semitic. They are Japhethites.
Yes.
They are Indo-European, Aryan.
And this is why Hitler sent his guys down there to perform metrics on what he believed were the true Aryans, in the Tibet region, in Persia, in India. He felt that the true Aryan race began in that little cradle down there.
Mm-hmm. And that is why the king of Persia, the Shah, back in the 1930s, when Hitler was, pursuing this, and Himmler and the SS were conducting this research, changed the name of the country from Persia to Iran, which literally means land of the Aryans.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Aryan, you think Aryan is a Germanic thing? No, it's actually Persian, Indo-European.
So if this Persian nationalism is starting to take off, most of them are leaning towards a new religion or the old religion, or
well, that's the question. It is opening a door for the gospel. Essentially, it's first and foremost, it's a rejection of Islam. So it's opening the door for the gospel to be preached, but it is also leading to a return, for many of them, to Zoroastrianism, because they see that as connected to a national identity or an ethnic identity. This is something that I had to learn the hard way by insulting a fellow student when I was at school who was, he would go to school. This was back in the early 80s, so it was during the war with Iraq, and during breaks, he would have to go back and fight in the military.
Oh, yeah. I had some friends who were that way.
And I just assumed that, okay, you're Muslim, Iraq is Muslim. Why are all you Arabs fighting? And he got very angry. I am not an Arab.
Yeah.
I am Persian. Oh. Well, and that's something that we in the West tend to overlook or gloss over. Iranians are not Arabs, and Arabs are not Turks. And so, a lot of what is going on over there, we view it as all in one. It is strange then that Hezbollah, which is or Hamas rather, which is a Sunni organization, it's essentially the military wing of the Muslim Brotherhood, whose goal is to restore the caliphate, the Ottoman Empire, which was Turkic, is supported by Iran, which is Shia, and Shias and Sunnis really, really hate each other. That was the whole point of the war, in the civil war in Syria, with the Islamic State going after anyone who was not sufficiently Sunni. So, but it's the enemy of my enemy is my friend. We'll back Hamas because they're poking Israel with a stick, and the mullahs, the ayatollahs find that useful for their own purposes.
You told me that during your talk with Ali Siadatan that you began discussing the gods of specific peoples.
Yeah.
And the bottom of all of this, what you and I take a look at, that's why PID Radio, Peering into Darkness, that's why we call it that, because we're looking at the spirits behind the political activities, the geopolitics, and then there's theopolitics behind all of that.
Yeah. He and Ali pointed this out, and this is part of the discussion. So I encourage you to listen tomorrow night's or watch tomorrow night's.
Don't you love the way I'm really teasing your?
Yeah, but it's some really interesting stuff.
It is very interesting.
He sees saw the attack on October 7th. Sees that as very significant because it occurred during the Feast of Sukkot, Feast of Tabernacles, which is he suggests is the time frame of Zechariah 14 when Messiah returns, lands on the Mount of Olives. That would fit with our understanding of the Feast of Tabernacles because that's the 7-day festival where 70 bulls were slaughtered, representing the gods of all the other nations except Israel. Okay? All the other nations are being governed by these fallen angels except Israel, God reserved for himself. And the festival then represented God saving his people from these other Elohim.
Right.
So you've got a 50-year cycle, like a jubilee, okay? The Islamic Revolution in Iran took place in 1979, which means the 50th year comes up in the fall of 2028 and spring of 2029. Spring of 2029 is when asteroid Apophis makes its close pass of the Earth.
Yes, exactly. And if you back up 3.5 years, you get to October of 2025.
And the Feast of Tabernacles. Right. So
and
we
if you add
discussed
7
that.
years to that,
Yep.
then
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. So he suggested that, and he's heard from other people, and he said that I was the second person in the span of like the last month to discuss this return to Zoroastrianism, or the movement to return to Zoroastrianism in Iran, that there's a belief among some in Iran, again, these people who want to reject Islam, that the Prince of Persia or their gods were overthrown by this Arabic god in 1979.
Yes.
That it was not just a political revolution, it was a spiritual, theopolitical revolution, that this Arabic god came in and took over their country. Like, oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So who are we dealing with here?
That's biblical, because we have, the Prince of Greece who came in to oust the Prince of Persia.
Right.
So who came in this time?
Well, I would argue, and I think this should go into the gates of hell, the book we're working on.
Yeah, it's not a big hole in our backyard.
No.
No, we haven't found one quite that big.
Yeah, Grace has been investigating, but she hasn't found a hole that big yet. That the entity, and this would be a change from what I put into Bad Moon Rising back in 2018, where I argued that Allah was a like a Wizard of Oz type simulacrum of the old gods of Mesopotamia. I think now Allah, Al-Ilah, the God, Elil, Enlil, Molech, Dagon, El of the Canaanites,
Shemiyaza, Saturn, Kronos.
Yeah, right. I think that's who that is. That he is still exercising power and authority from his prison cell in Tartarus through minions, demonic minions. I think the Prince of Greece would be Satan.
Zeus,
Jupiter, Thor.
the storm god.
Yeah, who moved his base of power westward as political power, military power moved westward to first Great Britain and then the United States. It's not a coincidence that the United States Capitol is named for the Capitolium, the temple of Jupiter in Rome. So you've got him, you've got Islam under the power of this other dark god, Shemiyaza, Saturn, Kronos, and the Prince of Persia. Who would that be? I don't know, but if I had to make a guess, I would say Ahura Mazda. I read somewhere, and I've been looking for the source again because I want to cite the source. I believe that Ahura Mazda is equivalent to Marduk. That Marduk is not the storm god.
Well, entirely possible. Entirely possible. That may well be who's in charge of it today. Back then, who knows? Because the god who was worshipped by Nabonidus was Nabu.
Nabu, yeah.
And Nabu is definitely trying to run the world right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some stuff about Nabu that I just was sort of equating to things that I'm reading in the Temple at the Center of Time. If you do not have that book, they may still have it at the Skywatch TV store.
Pretty sure they do. And probably available on Kindle.
Probably. Yeah. It's worth it.
Yeah, David Flynn, Temple at the Center of Time. So, very speculative. We see into that realm as though into a glass darkly, as Paul wrote. So we don't...
Well, that's profound.
Yeah, don't really have it nailed down. But the other question is this. As we see China and Russia and India, and who would the Prince of India be? I mean, you've got the Hindu gods worshipped by the people of India.
Well, that's where it gets really confusing if you look at now, because there's a reason why Proto-Indo-European languages, the Pi languages, are called that. It's because India and Persia, that whole area, that whole cradle area, they were all Aryan. They were all Japhethites.
Yeah.
Japhethites.
Proto
coming again.
Yeah. But Proto-Indo-European is still hypothetical. It's sort of reverse engineered.
No, I agree with that.
Yeah.
But the fact is that there are elements that seem to relate back to a number of languages in that area. So I don't think that India, what we call India, was monolithic either.
No, it was not.
Nor is it today. In fact, there is a big backlash against Buddhists and also against Muslims. Hindu is becoming the big thing.
Right, and Christians too.
Oh, yes. Yeah. They're trying, it's very nationalist. in a religious way.
Right. Modi is really promoting that. And that is, in fact, they wanted to change the name of what India is referred to. What was it?
It was actually spelled that way at his most recent meeting of the Security Council?
It was the G7, I thought, or G20.
I'll look that up. Keep talking.
Anyway, they're definitely promoting a nationalist agenda, and the reason that I find this puzzling and spend a lot of time thinking about it is because you've got Brazil, Russia, India, China, and then South Africa sort of tacked on at the end as a counterweight, an opposing bloc to the G7, which are the main Western economies.
Bharat.
Okay.
Bharat. Bharat.
Right.
I think it was the Western world that named it India.
Sure. The in terms of what they call purchasing power parity, which is some formula they use to equate
PPP?
Gross domestic product versus cost of living or something. The BRICS nations now exceed the G7 in GDP when you calculate it that way.
BRICS, in case you are not familiar, BRICS.
Yeah.
Brazil, Russia, India, China,
South Africa. Right. But as of January 1st, also now including the UAE, Saudi Arabia.
Ooh, that's big.
It is. Now, India and China still squabble over a disputed border in the Himalayas. They occasionally will have these really nasty brawls that break out between Indian troops and Chinese troops.
Well, and there are also monks in Nepal who periodically set themselves on fire.
So they're not all on the same page politically, but when you get China and India together, you've got a big chunk of the world's population. And then when you add Russia, Iran will be part of this group as well, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE, you've got a big chunk of the world's natural gas and oil. So a big chunk of the world's population and natural resources on one side. You've got the G7 nations, which other than the U.S. and Canada, which are major oil producers and get natural gas producers, if the governments would let us do it, you've got basically just consumer economies on the other side of the equation. Now, is it really a divergence or a bifurcation in the global economy, global political situation, or is it just a Hegelian dialectic being set up by Satan? These two sides are fighting with each other. Things will get really bad, and then suddenly the Antichrist will appear to put everything right. I don't know. I don't know how that's all going to play out.
Well, you said a minute ago, we see through a glass darkly, and I think that that is the takeaway from this. We can look at the world and make draw inferences from what we see, but are we 100% right? No, of course not. Of course not. We will invariably, years from now, say, oh, we got that totally wrong, didn't we?
Yeah.
But we do our best. That's all we can do.
Yeah, well, it's like I said, I've already kind of rethought my analysis, my identification of Allah since I wrote that book.
Well, and when I mentioned reading through Temple at the Center of Time, as with many great works, you have to read through it many times because you have more context. You've learned more. Now, certain passages will make sense that didn't make sense before, or that you glossed over. The Bible, however, is the ultimate version of that. It is a deep, deep, in fact, I would say bottomless well and wealth of knowledge. And I could read it every day. If I could read that fast, I could read it every day of my life and still not understand everything.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Understanding it completely would mean understanding the mind of God completely. And that's just not going to happen.
No, because it's more than just the words. And we're reading it in English. Even if I read it in ancient Hebrew and ancient Greek and Aramaic, I still wouldn't get it all.
He's not revealed everything. He's revealed everything we need to know, but yeah.
And that's something that Isaac Newton was really trying to figure out. And that's one of the things that really drove David Flynn to write Temple at the Center of Time. He'd been reading Newton's works for a while. So I highly recommend that book.
Well, I know what my homework is for the rest of the weekend.
We all have homework to do.
Yeah. Well, we've also got some stuff that we need to get done. Writing, again, that project, the Gates of Hell, we are looking for a fourth quarter release on that.
As in Joe at Defender, which is Skywatch TV, Joe Horn, he's informed us that we need to turn it in by the end of March.
Yeah, middle of March.
Oh, I better change my thoughts.
Yes.
And start putting them on.
Speed them up.
Yes.
More coffee.
Turn up the...
Speaking of which, we will be introducing coffee to the Gilbert House store soon. Yeah, Kevlar Joe's Coffee.
We're
working on developing some blends for us, so we'll be announcing that in the weeks ahead.
There's an Amazing Grace blend.
Yes. Snarling Dachshund, which we had to have. Yeah. And Bunker Buster.
Oh, yeah.
So but we will announce those as soon as those are available. Should be within the next few weeks. And, of course, we appreciate you taking advantage of the specials at the Gilbert House store. Also, 20% off on streaming video at our streaming video site, which we continuously forget to talk about.
I know, we always do.
But we've got a lot of our conference presentations and long-form teachings available. Also, our 2 traveloguementaries of our tours to Israel, so you can see what it's like on the ground in the Holy Land.
By the way, all DVDs at the Gilbert House store are $10 till the end of this month.
Right, so it's kind of a blowout.
Not every one. You can't get every DVD we have for a total of just $10, but each DVD will cost you $10.
Right. But if you're overseas and you want to get instant access in full HD instead of DVD quality, you can do that for on some of these for as little as $2.95 for a 7-day rental, and then of course 20% off.
That's a deal.
So that's through the end of this month at gilberthouse.org/video.
There you go.
Tomorrow night, Elise Siadatan on A View from the Bunker, and on Monday what are we doing on Monday?
No, I don't know.
Unraveling Revelation. New episode of Unraveling Revelation, actually going back and looking at the chiefs of the Gibborim.
Yeah, we've been running some best of kind of things during our holiday because you have to record these programs several weeks in advance.
Right.
And we just wanted to take some time off.
Yep. But
so, no, we've not recorded a new one since then. So,
but we do have a new one coming out a week from Monday.
Oh, yay.
Yeah, got one on the 14th, and that will be... on Should Christians Support Israel?
I remember that one.
Yeah.
I was there.
You were there.
Was I? Was I there?
And join us tomorrow morning for our Bible study, the Gilbert House Fellowship at gilberthouse.org.
And we'll be celebrating communion tomorrow morning because we did not meet last Sunday.
Yes. So until then, I'm Derek Gilbert.
I'm Sharon Gilbert, and for Grace Gilbert. Bye-bye, everybody.
PID Radio is produced by Gilbert House and released under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 International License. Follow us online, Twitter @PID Radio, or the PID Radio page at Facebook. Join us each week for our online Bible study, the Gilbert House Fellowship, online at gilberthouse.org.